Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel and Happy New Year! I hope you've had a good Christmas break, whatever you've been doing, and I wish you and those you love the very best for 2019, the best of health and happiness and peace and love. And it's good to be back. I had, of course, hoped to make some videos over the Christmas period and haven't really had time to do that, partly because I've been away for Christmas and was busy over New Year, and also partly because I've just been kicking back and relaxing and not putting any pressure on myself to do much of anything, frankly. But I am beginning to get back into the swing of things now. I'm going back to work on Monday, and now that we're in the new year, I am really kicking things off in earnest in terms of my plans for 2019. Some of those plans, of course, centre around the depth year that many of us are participating in, and I've got a lot more to say about that in the near future. But what I want to do really before I do go into that in more detail is finish off with some of the things that I had intended to finish at the end of last year and didn't quite get to, and that of course is, one of those things of course, is my Kind of Magic series. And so this video is another installment in that very series, and if you look very carefully you may just see somewhere in the background hidden the very subtly placed magician card to indicate that that's what we're going to be talking about today, magic. So I have been thinking about how to continue this series and how to bring it to a useful conclusion, useful for you, I mean. And I had intended at one point to do a series of videos on various different magical practices and to go into them in some depth. But I've decided not to do that. The reason being, well, a couple of reasons. One is there's lots of information out there about how to specifically practice different magical methods. And also because, you know, one of the things that I've been making clear in this series is that you know, it's very much about my kind of magic. And my kind of magic is, if I'm really honest, not a terribly organised, regimented kind of magic. It's not a very consistent magical practice. So it would be a bit disingenuous of me, I think, to sit down and say, here are some magical processes and rituals that I use in my life all the time, because the truth is there aren't really magical rituals and processes that I use all of the time. There are various different things that I dip into and use when the time is right for me and when I need to. And that actually leads on to, or will lead on to, the last video in this series, which is I think is going to be kind of interesting. I hope certainly interesting for you, certainly interesting for me, because in that video I'm going to come down quite hard on a particular approach to magic, or is it magic? You'll have to wait and find out. And in between this video and that one, I'm going to do a couple more videos at least on magical decks, magical tools. I've already of course walked through the magician's deck. That was one of my last videos, if not the last video, and also I walked through the 40 servants as well in one of my lives. So so all of that is still to come, and once I've done that, which I'm hoping to get done over the next few days, I'm not going to make any promises about when though, because I know how the time can just fly away. Once I've done all of that, then I will be going into the new year proper with my with some new plans really for the channel, and also for my blog, my long neglected blog that I'm trying to resurrect, and my plans for depth year and various other things as well. So all of that is still to come, but this video is about magical methods in general. So rather than going into the detail of specific magical methods, I thought what would be most useful is if I talked through what I think are the important aspects of a successful magical method. And then once I've done that, I'm going to give you some recommendations, some book recommendations for books that I think are really great and accessible, and that you, I hope, would find useful in your magical practice. So let's start with the notion of the aspects of a magical method. So I've grouped these into four aspects, four components of a magical method, and this relates to and applies to any kind of magical kind of process that you might want to participate in or conduct in order to practice magic. So whether it's, you know, spell work or ritual or divination or any of that kind of stuff, and we'll get onto that in a second. But the 4 stages are, I'll run through them very quickly and then I'll talk about them in some more detail. Number 1, focus or intention. As Becca from Tarot Night Owl would say, focus, you swine! Except she can't now because Swinecam has gone. Becca, I'm very upset this Swinecam has gone. I'm not really, because I know that you're happy with your iPad, which is great. But I miss Swinecam. I do. I feel a sense of loss for Swinecam. Those of you who don't know who Becca is and don't know what I'm talking about, forgive me. I will put a link to Becca's channel below and you can check it out. And if you go back to some of her earlier videos, then you will quickly discover all about Swinecam. Anyway, so number 1, focus, intention. Number 2, trance. Number 3, enactment. That's the actual doing of the magical practice. And then number 4, results. So taking them one at a time. Number 1, why is focus and intention important? Well, naturally enough, if you're going to do some magic in order to achieve a particular result, whatever that result is, whether it's the kind of low magic result of maybe, you know, winning the lottery or coming into more money or finding a new love partner or getting the new job or having the confidence to repair your leaking roof or whatever it is, the practical thing that you want. If you don't know what it is that you want and can't define what it is that you want, how will you know you've got there, and how will you know how to focus your magical practice? So intention is important, focus is important in that first step, figuring out what it is that you want to achieve as a result of the magical practice. And of course, being clear about that can also help you then to pick the kind of magical practice that is going to be most appropriate for you. The second step is trance, going into a form of a kind of meditative state, a trance state. Now, those of you who have been following this channel and who were with me from the beginning, which is, can you believe it is over a year ago now, just over a year ago. I started this channel on the 14th of December of 2017, and here we are at the beginning of 2019 already. I can hardly believe it. But one of my very first videos, and I'll link that below, was a video on, I think I might have called it Midwinter Musings actually, so it was probably around this time of year that I filmed it, just, you know, end of December. And in it I talked about a particular study that had been done. It was a book I was reading which had described a study that had been done into tarot divination, and it had been done under scientific conditions, not necessarily kind of scientific in the sense of being replicable. So I don't think we can say that this study proved anything in terms of the scientific method, but certainly it took a scientific approach to looking at divination. And I won't go into all the detail of it, but basically it looked at 2 groups and a randomized control group, if you like, and the comparison was between tarot cards that had been selected blindly while in a trance state, having gone into a meditative state and set the intention for the reading, and tarot cards that had been selected just randomly without any of that. And what they found was, in this particular study, was that those that had been selected through the trance state were more relevant and more accurate to the reading than those that had been selected randomly. So if we, for the purposes of this video, accept that divination is or can be a form of magic, one of the ways that you enact a magical practice, then I think it would follow that if it's true that a trance-like state improves the chances of a positive outcome or an appropriate outcome, an accurate and relevant outcome in your divination, then the same would be true of other magical enactments as well. So going into a trance-like state before you, you know, do a candle spell or make a sigil or you know, carry out some kind of ceremony as part of your magical practice. So that's why the second part is important. It's about kind of giving yourself space to step outside of the mundane world, and we do that in a number of different ways. one way is by going into trance. The other way, of course, is by creating sacred space, maybe a magical circle, calling the quarters, doing the Kabbalistic cross, all of that kind of stuff. The lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram, etc., as some would do in Kabbalistic and ceremonial magic. Once we've done that, we've created this kind of non-mundane magical space, both in our psyche and in our physical space, that gives us a place to practice the magic and increases the likelihood of the spell or whatever it is we're doing being effective for us. So that's why the second stage of trance is important. And then the third stage of enactment, this is really where the world is your oyster, the magical world is your oyster in terms of what you do and what you choose to do. Now, personally, I like to keep things simple, so I have dabbled in, but have never really got into, in any great detail, ceremonial magic, because for me it's just too time consuming, too bombastic, if you like. It just doesn't suit my style. But that does not mean in any way that I'm saying that it's not effective or that it shouldn't be something that you explore if you're interested in. So I like to keep things simple. My magic tends to be kind of trance work, path working, maybe some sigil working, maybe a candle spell or two here and there, but mainly the kind of magic that you know happens in the mind, and that is very much focused on the kind of visualization and perhaps the creation of some kind of artistic representation of what I intend. But that's only my way of doing it. There are lots of other ways. You can do ceremonial magic, ritual magic, where you and or others go through an entire process of acting out a series of you know, stances or movements or placements of objects that are designed to represent a particular intention, magical intention, and that call in various powers to help you achieve that potential. There's spellcraft, so the actual casting of a spell, maybe actually putting into words, possibly rhyming words, what you intend, and actually casting a spell, and maybe doing that as part of your ritual or doing it over a candle, etc., etc. There is also, and this is related of course to ceremonial magic, but it doesn't have to be, the kind of magic that is about pulling in, if you like, other dimensions of being, deity perhaps, or other beings that you conceive of as being magical assistants in this process. So things like invocation, where you are calling in a particular power to stand in your space with you, or in your ritual space, or evocation, where you're calling up a particular quality within yourself as a result of your magical practice. Prayer, where you're petitioning deity and asking for something, where you are supplicating yourself in a way and asking for something as part of your spiritual development, say. There's petitioning is the same, offering and all that kind of thing, where you're actually interacting with this perceived magical world, other world. Then there's a kind of creative enactment of magic, where you maybe make some kind of artwork, or you create a sigil, you know, you maybe consecrate a particular tool or an object and set it to a particular purpose. Maybe you make a magical potion of some sort. You might also create something on the astral level, like a servitor, so this as people do in chaos magic, this creation that is designed to help you achieve something by giving it a kind of astral reality and then setting it a task in order to assist you in your work. And then of course there is the aforementioned divination, the kind of work that you can do with tarot, where you're actually going into a trance and then asking for guidance. And of course there's path working and so on and so forth. So those are just some of the ideas. There's also folk magic, there's various other traditional witchcraft, all kinds of things. You know, there are options aplenty when it comes to enacting magic. So that's the third space, the third stage in the method that I outline. And then the fourth one, this idea of result. You know, what do you get? What do you get for the magic that you've done. And this is about, you know, once you've set your intention and you've gone into your trance, you know, you've chosen your method, you've gone into your trance, you've enacted your method, and then of course you get the result, or not, as the case may be. And this is where one of those kind of magical maxims that you often hear in witchcraft circles, I think, is a really useful one. And it's to know, to dare, to will, and to shut the f up. No, it's to know, to dare, to will, and to keep silent. Now, for me, this is very much tied to what I think Aleister Crowley, excuse me, you see, as soon as I spoke the word Aleister Crowley, I then nearly choked to death. I think I maybe have accidentally invoked him, and he's throttling me for messing up his magical methods. So, so where was I? Yeah, so he had said something about it's important when you're carrying out magic to do so without lust of result. In other words, to not be too attached to a particular outcome. Because this is one of the things that I think is really important about magic, and this is something I will come on to in a future video, I think probably the last one in this series, and that is that the truth of the matter is, we think we know what's best for us, and we think we know what the best magical outcome can be from a magical practice, but do we really know? Do we actually know, in the broad scheme of things, what is going to be best? So to some extent, all of this is being done beyond us, simply from the point of view of we cannot absolutely control the outcome. So you might set the best of intentions, you might have a very clear focus and objective, you might go into a perfectly marvellous deep trance, you might enact your spell or your ritual or whatever it is you're doing with great precision, and then you will or you won't get the result. The idea that you want. The idea, of course, is to try and enhance the opportunity and the option of you getting the result you want, but you might not. So, so I think it is kind of important that you consider this, and that what we do as magicians is we recognise that sometimes the result we get may not be the result that we want, but it could well be the result that we need. And if you'll excuse me a moment, I'm going to pause and cough my guts up. Okay, I think I've finished coughing. I'm not going to blow my nose. You know, excuse me, I think that might be the first time I have ever blown my nose on camera. But as they say, cheers, there is a first time for everything. Oh, Aleister. Okay, now let's have a quick pause and look at my Yogi T's aphorism. You will always live happy if you live with heart. That is so true. It's quite hard to live without your heart. I know it doesn't mean your actual heart, it means heart in the wider sense. Anyway, so yes, going back to what I said before I nearly coughed myself to death, to know, to dare, to will, to keep silent. The keep silent bit is that thing. Also, you know, obviously it's used as a way of saying if you are into this kind of stuff, it sometimes doesn't pay to go around broadcasting it to everyone, a bit like I'm doing now, because it all operates on a level that generally is not the level that people in polite society, if you like, will understand. But it's not just about that. It's also about letting it be what it is once you've done it. So you do your magical practice, and you sit back and you are detached from the result, and you're accepting of the result. And a really, I think, a useful approach to take to magic is if it comes to you to do a magical spell, a magical working of some sort, do it, do it with the best of intentions, and then step back from it and allow things to unfold as they will, because that then gives you the ability to reflect on what comes up next and to consider how you're going to deal with that in the most appropriate way, and in a very open-hearted way. Whereas if you are completely attached to a particular result and you don't get that result, there is a chance that that will make you very unhappy, or it will make you keep striving for something that may or may not be appropriate to bring into manifestation at that time. And you'll know if it's not appropriate to be brought into manifestation at that time, because it won't manifest. That is just how it works. You know, how do I know it's appropriate for it to have come into manifestation? There it is. How do I know it's not appropriate for it to have come into manifestation at this particular time? It's not there. It's as simple as that, in my world anyway. So that is my canter through the magical method. And I think what I'm going to do, partly because I need to go and probably cough, cough, cough and have another hot drink, I'm actually going to pause here and I'm going to do the videos in a separate second video, which will be the part 2 of this one, and that will be my recommendations, and also because I've got quite a lot of books to run through, so if I start doing it now, this video will go on forever. So that has been my the facets of my magical method, whatever method I'm choosing. Focus, go into trance, enact your practice, whatever it may be, and then consider the results without attachment, with an open heart and an open mind. And that, my friend, will put you in the very best possible magical position to be in, I think. So, see you all very soon.